Hello, everyone. My name is Anta Bastian. I am a program officer at the Community Radio Fund of Canada. The entire CRFC team and I are very happy to have you here. So thank you very much. Before we go further and talk about the highlights of this webinar, I'm going to ask Emmanuel and Alex to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Emmanuel Sayer. I'm the programs manager here at the Community Radio Fund of Canada. I'm very excited for this presentation to help give you an overview of some of the changes to the program, if you're familiar with the program. Otherwise, just kind of the new, the processes that you'll go through when applying to this program. So thanks a lot for joining us today.
And off mute. Hey, good to see everybody. Welcome to this meeting. It's wonderful to see some familiar faces as well as some new ones. Hi, Roxanne. Good to see you. And yeah, so welcome to this webinar. I really appreciate you all taking the time to be here. I just wrote an article, an op-ed about the need for increased government advertising to community radio. And it was published yesterday, and it's gotten a fair amount of traction, which is wonderful. I've been meeting with a number of folks today, including a couple of MPs. And you know, one of the great joys of what I get to do is relay the stories of the successes that you all have. And it is really quite remarkable to just spend some time with these people and list, you know, story after story, you know, from the community project that CJLO has undertaken to identify local music, to a number of the projects that you have all undertaken during the pandemic, talking about some of the successes you know, as far as north as Dawson City, and some of the radio plays that they did during the pandemic. And no, it's all critical, and what you do is really important for your communities. And so it is our pleasure as a fund to do everything in our power to create more opportunities for you to have access to the supports you need to fulfill your goals. You know, Radiometres, as you well know, has always been one of our flagship program, and it's been a great success, providing millions of dollars to so many different great projects over the more than 10 years that it's been in existence. And so it's great to have you here for the next round of Radiometres, and we're very excited. We've heard from you in your feedback that there have been challenges in the past with the length of the forms you need to fill out, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, we work all the time to try and make sure that what we do is as easy for you to access, and that what we're able to give you meets the current demands. And so you'll see today some changes to the program, hopefully some changes for the better, that respond to the needs, the current needs that we face in a very digital atmosphere. And so I want to take a moment to acknowledge the work that each and every one of you do every day, to thank you for how hard you work to serve your communities and your listeners. And I also want to take a moment to thank Emmanuel and Anta, who have been working diligently and tirelessly at improving this program and making sure it has the greatest reach possible. And I just think that they do a wonderful job. And sometimes we don't take the time we can to acknowledge the work that goes into this. So I wanted to do that. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Emmanuel and Anta to give you the details of the program. And I look forward to seeing great success as we go forward. So thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Alex. So you can see on your screen the agenda for this session. The purpose of this webinar is to present the changes that have been made to the CRFC flagship program, which is Radiometres, and its application process. This is a result of the feedback that we received through some surveys and some similar tools. Before we get into the priorities of this program, I'm going to turn the floor over to Emmanuel so that he can present the program and the reviews that was completed last September. Emmanuel.
Thank you, Anta. So Radiometres was launched in 2012. This is our longest running program, and the funding for this program comes from Canada's private broadcasters through their contributions to Canadian Content Development, or CCD. So this was a decision made by the CRTC in 2010 in the Campus Community Radio broadcasting decision that provides new resources for volunteer support, programming, and community involvement, improved programming and training for volunteers, as well as new media approaches and distribution of programming through digital means, which is one of the aspects we'll be touching upon during this round of Radiometres. So the changes that have come to the program are part of this ongoing review that was first started in late 2018. So a survey was sent out in November 2018, 103 stations, over half of the total amount of campus community stations responded. We also held complimentary workshops at Les Jours de la Radio, a conference with stations, francophone stations from Quebec and across Canada, as well as the National Campus Community Radio Conference in June 2019. We also went through the program results since the launch. And of course, as we mentioned, all of the emails and conversations that we have with stations on a day-to-day basis. All of this review and our approach is part of our strategic plan that one of our goals and one of the pillars of the plan is to support the sustainable growth of the community broadcasting sector through agile and accessible programs that respond to their current and future needs. So part of that agility is updating our programs, changing our approaches, and we believe that a lot of our changes will make this funding program more accessible to community broadcasters.
Thank you, Emmanuel. The priorities of the Radiometres program are as follow. So you have the content creation priority, which is for any station that plans to create music or spoken word programming. Then there is the skill and capacity building priority, which is for any project that plans to train staff, volunteers, or board of directors. Finally, we have the digital initiative priority, which is for any project involving the implementation or improvement of digital programming distribution system. If you're familiar with this program, Radiometres, you will notice that the digital initiative priority is new. So I will leave it to Emmanuel to explain in more details the expectations of this priority.
Thank you, Anta. So as I mentioned earlier, the digital initiatives is part of a priority that was established by the CRTC for this Canadian Content Development funding. So they were looking to fund new media approaches and distribution of programming through digital means. So that's really what this priority is looking to support. As we know more and more, we can reach audiences other than our FM broadcast. So this is really an opportunity to jumpstart some projects at your station that will help with the distribution of content. So we'll note that this priority focuses on distribution. So something to keep in mind, it's not about content creation. So it's not about creating podcasts. If you were looking to do a project that would create podcast content to share, that would fall under the first priority of content creation. But if you want to develop an approach that your radio programming could then be transformed into podcasts, create a system so that you have a podcast platform on your website, for example, that would fall under priority 3. Maybe it's creating digital archives that are accessible to your listeners. Maybe it's adding a stream of your FM signal if you don't currently have one. So all of these types of projects would fall under the digital initiatives. We're also excited to see what other digital initiatives you want to share. We're interested to see some of the potentials of open source projects as well. This isn't a necessary aspect of projects, but we're very interested in seeing open source projects that could then be accessible and reusable and modifiable between stations could be interesting. So that's generally speaking what we're looking for here in digital initiatives. I will also mention that we also expect that a portion of the project will potentially be related to training, because if you're setting up a new system, a new way of sharing your content, you'll probably need to train your staff or volunteers on these systems. So I'll leave Tanta to speak a bit more about kind of projects that touch many different priorities.
Thank you, Emmanuel. So if your project have aspects that fit into different priorities, for example, you plan to create programming, but you also need to train the employees that will be creating that programming. We advise you to choose the priority that best explain the main purpose of your project. So now we will move on to the section on the amount and the duration of the project funded under Radiometres. Okay, so in order to increase the number of stations that can benefit from the Radiometres program, we decided to set the amount that can be requested at the maximum of $35,000. This amount was chosen because $35,000 is the average amount requested by stations since the beginning of this program. And we've noticed that with the same envelope of $1,250,000 and the amount of $35,000, 40% more station can be funded. So it means more chances for your station to be selected. To ensure as well more flexibility to the funded project and to allow some applicants to have more time to find other sources of funding or potential collaborators, we allow stations to start their project 6 months after the funding is granted. Something also that you should note, projects cannot last longer than 12 months, and they must start before September 1st, 2022, and before March 1st, 2023. Now we will take a break to answer any question or comments you may have. Also a reminder that you can ask any questions or comments at any time in the chat. Do we have any questions, Emmanuel?
Can I ask a question? It's Roxanne.
Hi, Roxanne.
Hi, sorry. Somebody came into my office when you were talking about skills development. Could you just quickly run over that again?
Sure. So this priority is for the training of, this priority is for any projects that involve training of volunteers, staff members, or members of your board. So this is the type of project that we are expecting in this priority.
Thank you.
No problem. So we'll go back to here. Is there another question? Okay, so if not, then we will move to the next section of this webinar. Okay, so now we will talk about the changes to the application process. So as Emmanuel mentioned earlier, in 2018, there was a survey in which 60% of the participants mentioned that they never applied to the Radiometres program because they did not have enough time to complete the application form. This is also something that has been confirmed by several stations. So to this end, we decided to review the application process and simplify it. So now the Radiometres program has 2 stages. The first stage includes 2 tasks. The first task is for stations to fill in its station profile for the new applicants, or to update it if you are not applying to the Radiometres program for the first time. Last year, we implemented a system that allowed stations that had already applied for funding to reuse the same profile in their application. This round is an opportunity for those stations to update their profile, as it is really important for the jury members because it gives them a context about your station. So the second task is the project proposal. Here you will present the objectives, the motivations, and the impact of your project. The application will then be evaluated by our selection committee. And if your project is selected, then you will be invited to proceed to the second stage of this application process. In this stage, you will present the people involved in your project, the timeline of your activities, the project budget. You might also, in this second step, receive certain questions that may have been formulated by the jury members. And also something that I wanted to mention is that Word versions of all applications form are available for you at any time during this process, which means that you can have the entire application form if you want it. Okay, so also something that I wanted to mention and make clear is that moving on to the second stage doesn't guarantee you the success of your project. So now, after mentioning the new application process, I will share with you the timeline. Okay, so as you already know, the launch of this program was January 27. And now I encourage all the stations to contact us throughout the entire process. Feel free to submit your draft. If you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to reach out. Now is the time. We are really here to ensure that you are presenting the best possible application possible to the jury members. Also, something that is important to mention is that the application deadline for the first stage is March 3rd. And the result for this first stage will be pronounced on April 2nd. April 22nd, sorry. April 22nd also marks the beginning of the second stage, which will end for the applicants on May 13th, and then we will publish the results in July. So now after this, I will then talk about the selection criteria. All the criteria are listed on your screen right now, and they are also mentioned in the program guidelines. So if you have any questions around that, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We will definitely give you more details into that. I will now provide more details regarding the strategic priorities mentioned here. Some criteria such as the geographical distribution or inclusion and diversity will be taken into account at the final stage of the selection of the application. Indeed, in the final decisions of which project will be funded in this round, strategic priorities will be used to support the jury decision. These strategic priorities have been identified by the CRTC and the FCRC to support the success of our programs. And they are listed on your screen. I will go through them. You have the geographic distribution, the linguistic representation, and we also have the underrepresented communities. You have BIPOC, which stands for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And then we have LGBTQ2S+, which stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, or two-spirit. And we have OLMC, which stands for Official Language Minority Communities. We also have other strategic priorities, which are the first time, if you are a first-time recipient, or also we have the station financial profile. After that, we will now move on to the changes we are considering implementing in the future. Okay, good. So also in the surveys that we reviewed, we saw that some stations mentioned that they found the time between 2 funding rounds of radiometers was quite long. So we are considering holding 2 rounds of radiometers per year. Another approach that we are also considering is the creation of different programs, which will mean separating the different priorities into several programs. And also something we want to do is that at the end of this round, we will share with you a form in which we will collect your impressions and your impression on the program and in the potential directions we would like to give to this program. We really encourage you to fill it out and submit it, because we really value your feedback, as it is really essential for us in developing the appropriate programs for the sector. Now, thank you very much for listening to our presentation, and we are open to any question or comments that you have.
So there's a couple comments in the chat about wanting examples of past projects that were funded. So feel free to reach out to Anta, and she'll be able to share those lists. I know we used to have some on the website, but I'm just not 100% sure, since we've recently made some changes, if they're still present. We intend to have the list of all the past projects on there, but with the recent changes, they might not be present. So please reach out to us and we can share examples of projects that have been funded in the past. We also we'll invite you, if you have any questions or comments, of course, reach out to Anta or myself. If you also have some questions or comments that you would rather send to us through your representative association, most likely the NCRA, if you'd rather not be giving feedback directly, feel free to do so. And we always like hearing back from stations. Lorraine asks, we have been fortunate to have received funds from the CRFC. Will that impact our ability to secure funds this time around? So the answer to that is no. Every application will be evaluated through the evaluation criteria. The strategic priority criteria that Anta mentioned aren't, be all end alls. It's not because you touch upon one of these or don't that you'll be funded or not. It is really when the selection committee makes their final decisions, it may help prioritize one application over another. For example, if they've got very similar scorings, they may say, oh, we would like to prioritize this station since it's touching into one of those strategic impacts. So I'm guessing you're asking the question, since it mentioned it might prioritize first-time recipients, that doesn't mean that if you're a previous recipient that it'll impact your ability to secure funds. I will also mention that in your application, you can also present an application that is a continuation of a current project. But if that is the case, you really need to show how this project is being moved forward from the activities you've already successfully accomplished. Yes, any other questions or comments? Feel free to speak them out loud or include them in the chat as you prefer. If not, you can reach out afterwards.
It's Ed Empringham from CHHR Nova Scotia. We are a very new station. We have not had our first CRTC reporting cycle yet. Does that affect us?
It doesn't affect your eligibility. Your eligibility, the main eligibility is having a valid license from the CRTC. So as long as you have that
Yep.
that would be it. Not having yet reported to a cycle doesn't make you ineligible.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question, I think, from
Station manager. Not sure which station.
it's,
That's Ian Gregg, CFUR Radio.
Okay.
George BC.
Hi, Ian.
Thanks. You mentioned briefly potential changes coming up in the future might include multiple application periods throughout the year, and I'm assuming that's probably not in this. What would this be? This would be the 2022-23 fiscal calendar year. Are you thinking that that might happen as soon as 2022? 23, the September to August timeframe, or would it be kind of like after that, and it's still in the planning consideration phases right now?
It's still very much in the planning phases. If we were to launch it, it would not be this year, that's for sure. It would potentially be next year. Yeah, the real hope, as Anta mentioned, is because currently with one funding round, if you find out that you're not funded, or if you come to us with a great project idea, but the application rounds has already closed, you have to wait almost a full calendar year before putting it forward. So we were hoping to have that flow. It also would, in our vision, would tie in with our new format of having 2 application stages. That way, if the first stage you weren't successful, you would be able to get feedback on that initial application and then put it in through that second round. So our goal, as we mentioned off the top, all these changes is to help stations have the most successful applications. It's actually going to make our job and our selection committee jobs harder, because we'll have stronger and stronger applications that way. But we see that as a net positive. The stronger the applications are, the more success the projects will have, and we will all succeed in that manner.
Certainly, that's it's pretty exciting stuff, and yeah, definitely, it's a changing atmosphere for radio stations, and seeing this, for example, like the digital aspect is also really exciting. So yeah, thanks for paying attention to the changing global dynamic, and thanks for braving through all the horns I can hear in the background through some of them.
Yes. No comment on that for now, but yeah. We have another question from Melissa asking, if you do switch the application windows to twice a year rather than annually, would the funding still be for annual projects? I think we'd still be open to having annual projects. We're really interested in seeing what stations are interested in. So if you have thoughts on that, Alyssa, or anyone else, you have feedback into what you would like to see if it was several times a year. My initial vision would be that it would be able to make longer projects, but perhaps it would also give stations a chance to do even potentially forward 2 different shorter term projects in the same year as well. So we're really looking to see flexibility, really looking as these are, as we know, project-based funding. It's not really here to fund your regular operations. It could be interesting to see someone, put forth a 3-month program to do a supercharged period of training for all of their staff members and volunteers, and then perhaps then be able to then look into creating some programming over the next year. So we're really open and interested. We know that there's going to be a lot of administrative things for us to figure out, so we don't have answers there yet. But please, this is why we welcome your thoughts, because you're going to be the ones putting forth applications. So we'd love to hear how this would positively or perhaps negatively affect you, so it helps us make programs that try to answer to everyone. so projects must be completed 12 months from the start. So some could be running into 2024, Ed asked. Yes, so this is, we're testing this out to have a new flexible format. So in the past, project needed to be started between September 1st and end before August 31st. We're starting to be open to programs that start a bit later. The main goal there was we know that some people finding out in July that they're funded didn't give them much time to prepare if they have to hire a project coordinator that's taking the lead on something. So yes, projects would potentially continue on, and that's another one where we're going to need to figure out the administration of it. Also thinking about stations putting forth an application in the next round if they haven't completed their other project and all of these. So these are all this is why we're starting our changes slowly but surely, and so that we can also, you know, change our approaches to see how we can administer this and yeah, our goal is to be as flexible as possible for the stations, respond to their needs, to their projects, and we will figure out how to administer those funds around then. So if those projects are ongoing, would you be eliminated? We would have to figure out that the start dates probably wouldn't cross over and things like that. So once again, these are the questions that are currently floating around in my head as well. So thank you for bringing them up. We have a question from James Anderson at CHMA saying the NCRA wrote a note about digital transformation. The NCRA, ANREC, along with the French Partner Community Association, is the process of looking to develop an integrated, comprehensive podcast live stream app / website solution to help with discoverability. The CRFC is aware of this in its early stages of development. We, the NCRA, recommend thinking of projects that do not involve podcast or app development in this round of funding. Can you clarify this further? This is a message from your association. We are open to any projects that people want to submit that fall under digital initiatives. So if this is, we are not, as the statement says, we, the NCRA, recommend thinking of projects that do not involve podcast or app development, that it does not, we are open to those types of proposals. So that is, I would say, speak to your representative at the association of how to move forward, but we are open to any and all digital initiatives, applications. Any other questions or comments?
Once again, thank you very much for being here with us. We are open to any questions or suggestions, as I mentioned. Please feel free to give us a call or an email. Also, something that I wanted to mention is that in the guidelines of the program, we have a section called the frequently asked questions. Feel free to read it. If you see certain questions that are not there, or anything, we appreciate your feedback. It's there really to answer also all the questions that you may have around the changes we talked about also in this webinar. Thank you very much for attending. You have anything else to add, Emmanuel? If not,
I'd just like to wish everyone a great day, and looking forward to seeing your applications come in.